Greetings, everyone. This is Mike Reilly, the voice of Ironman. And this is the Old School Tri Show with my Kiwi mates Cameron Harper and Brian Ashby. The show that talks about all things triathlon, old and new. We're powered by Ansco Foods, bringing you nutrition and good health from New Zealand's beef and lamb. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome along to the Old School Tri Show, brought to you with our great friends at Ansco Foods. And today, Brian, another winner, but a completely different perspective.
Yeah, real point of difference with this one. The 2022 Ironman New Zealand was delayed till later in the year because of COVID, and there were no pros. So this time we're talking to the women's winner, an age group winner, but the overall winner of Ironman New Zealand, Vanessa Murray.
Ansco Foods is proud to be the new naming partner of Ironman New Zealand, ensuring every stroke, pedal and stride is powered by the best nature has to offer. Ansco Foods is on a mission to bring nutrition and good health from New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Ansco Foods, putting the iron in Ironman with New Zealand's finest beef and lamb. Visit anscofoods.com/Ironman to find out more.
Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for giving up your time and joining us today. And I guess a lot of these chats, they kind of start with, where did it all start for you? How did you get into the sport? I'm hoping that you're going to say Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon.
Yeah, not quite, but thank you for having me. I guess my journey started quite late in life. So I'm going to blame my husband for getting me addicted to a triathlon because I had never done one before I met him. So I guess growing up, like I'd never even really thought about triathlon. And I think when I was at school, it wasn't really that big. So yeah, I just had kind of always done a little bit of running for fun, and am an ex-swimmer, so I obviously have the swimming background. But when I met my husband, he did this thing called Ironman, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is, and went along and watched one. And that's kind of where my journey began, when he sort of said, oh, maybe you should give one a go.
What was the one you went and watched?
Sorry. So I watched Ironman New Zealand when he did it, so many moons ago now. But and then he knew I had a swimming background, but he was like, "Oh, come to the pool with me." And he hates swimming, so I went to the pool with him. And he was like, "Oh, okay, you can swim." I think he thought I was just making it up. And then he bought me actually my first road bike and convinced me to do one of the. I think at the time it was the Panasonic People's Tri.
Yeah.
So I did the sprint one out in Maraetai as my first triathlon.
Does he regret ever saying to you, join up with Ironman? Does he regret that if you look at your times and you compare your times now?
Yeah, I do say to him, like, do you regret introducing me to the sport? Because it kind of took over our lives. Not many years later, he'd had enough of it, and he was like just full support crew for me. So, I think he probably had no idea what he was getting himself into.
Yeah. So like every other New Zealand kid, did you said a swimming background, but did you just sort of have a crack at a lot of stuff at school and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I did. Like I really loved, I loved cross country running, which is kind of funny because I'm a terrible off-road runner. I much prefer very wide trail or clean pavement where there's nowhere to roll my ankles. But I really enjoyed the cross country running, every kind of when most of my friends were off doing netball, and I was sort of at the cross country club rooms, and just had so much fun doing that. And I dabbled in athletics, and I did dancing for a number of years. Dancing was probably one that stands out as probably I guess what I did spend most of my childhood doing. But yeah, just loved going for a run with my dad. So kind of him and I kind of bonded through running. And I guess I just tried a little bit of everything. I think I even may have tried gymnastics for a very small period. That didn't last long, wasn't great at that. But yeah, I just loved having a go at everything, really.
When you were doing athletics, were you going running with your dad and stuff? Were you more inclined for longer distances than the sprint, or
yeah, definitely. I mean, same to this day. I always I loved the 1500 meter, did a little bit of the 800, was never great at the 100 sprint or even the 200, but still gave them a go, and was a high jumper of all things, which now I can't even imagine lifting my body that high off the ground. But that sort of growing up, that was sort of my thing, the high jump and the 1500. Yeah.
The fitness was always, like, before you met your husband, you fitness was always a thing for you. You always moved.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, Dad had always been into sport. So I think from a young age, I was sort of, I guess, brought up in that environment where sport was a part of your life, and not necessarily competitively, but just like, I guess, just the keeping active part, and, also the social aspect. And that's probably what I enjoyed the most about the cross country when I was younger, was I loved, I just grew really like good friendships through it, and just, loved hanging out with people before and after the races. And yeah, I guess, Dad exposed me to that at a young age. And apart from swimming, which I got a little bit serious about, like mostly it was just the enjoyment factor that, and I guess thinking back now, it's also why I've probably like been able to stay in sport for a number of years, because, I wasn't like pushed too hard early on, and I sort of, found that competitive spirit naturally myself.
I guess
Yeah.
an underlying theme in this chat as it unfolds. You've obviously you won Ironman New Zealand in 2022, and you're the first age group that to do it. It was an age group race.
Yeah.
You've obviously worked very hard through school, uni, and all of those things as well. So just sort of tell us about sort of mixing the two, and your I guess student life and professional life.
Yeah, I guess, so growing up through school, tried many sports. And then I guess in my later years at school, I sort of took a little break from, I guess, sport, when I guess you're like 17, 18 and your social life takes over. And then when I was back at uni, I started getting into mostly the gym, actually. I became quite a little gym bunny, and just enjoyed going to the gym. Still did a little bit of running, but yeah, I guess I just, after having that couple of years where I didn't do much, I was sort of eager to kind of get back into things. And I think, having something outside of uni and something outside of work to kind of like focus on as well is quite healthy. And I guess, I learned early on that it was a great way to just have a nice balanced life. You're working hard at uni, but you still want to, keep your mind and your body fit and healthy and active. So, I guess for as long as I can remember, and, aside from that small break, it's always complemented whatever else I've been doing.
But
Yeah.
you've had a pretty, impressive professional career away from sport. How difficult has it been? Just tell us about some of the jobs that you've done. I know you're working for your government these days in Melbourne. It sounds like, like sort of high pressure work. These aren't just sort of, rocket duty, leave at 5. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, I think, going back to, I guess, my working career in New Zealand, and I worked for Les Mills, so so in the gym industry, and I was the marketing projects manager there, and they were always really supportive of of my triathlon endeavors. So that it was really nice to kind of, and that was probably the bulk of the period where I was, like really, getting my teeth into the sport and training a lot, and developing a lot, and they were really supportive of that. So I think that really helped. And obviously, like, the ability to hit the gym in your lunch break and things, working in the gym industry was really helpful. But yeah, then sort of outside of that, like I guess when I first moved to Melbourne, there was a small intention there to work less and train more. But sort of like it's actually really hard to find, a job that is part-time and will work around your like triathlon endeavors as well. So I just found that was kind of easier said than done. So for the most part of my triathlon life, I guess I've worked a full-time job, and that definitely comes with challenges. And I think I'd probably be lying if I said there wasn't times that I just like, God, I wish I could train full-time. But I think we like going on holidays, and we like going out to dinner with friends, and the reality is that you need money to do all that. So for me it's just been about balancing things as best I can. But I guess the more competitive you get in the sport, the reality is that there's kind of something in your life that has to give. So there's sort of always that period and like a big build where I definitely am not seeing like my friends or socializing as much. And then I take full advantage of doing those things like after a big race and after a big goal. So I guess it's just about, prioritizing at the different stages of the build for a race.
How does that work? I mean, the struggle is real. I mean, I enjoy this because vast majority of athletes are working and doing their athletic pursuits. And for something like Ironman, I mean, how do you balance that? I mean, are we talking flipping long days for you to get all your training in?
Yeah, I think, I'm a really like early riser anyway. So, I'm, my alarm most mornings is 4:30, and that's just become the norm. And people don't understand how I can still be functioning at 5 o'clock at night. But yeah, it is funny how you kind of get used to it. There's definitely weeks where it still gets to you, and you just need to manage the load, and because at the end of the day, I still need to be switched on for work as well. So sort of AM and PM training before and after work, and I do work from home a couple of days a week, which gives me a little flexibility with a couple of lunch times. And I really just sort of, I look at my training calendar each week, and I just sort of, I'm a real planner. So I just plan out the whole week pretty much. So I know when I'm going to do the sessions. And obviously you have to be a little bit flexible when you're working a job that's sometimes a little unpredictable, but for the most part it works. But it is definitely early mornings and early to bed.
We'll come back to that work from home thing in a wee while, because it's quite interesting with Zwift and things. It's a bit of a big deal to you. But just winding it back a little bit, you met your boyfriend, now husband, and you went to an Ironman, watched him and stuff, thought this is cool. What was the first sort of races that you did? You didn't just jump straight into Ironman, because I know you've got a bit of a record of going to World Championships, ITU distances.
Yeah, so I did, I think a couple of, I really just kind of did a couple of those People Planet Sonic tries to start. And then I think for memory, Port of Tauranga was my first half Ironman. At the time, I honestly just thought I'd do one and tick it off. But as soon as I finished, I was like, nope, where do I sign up again? So I remember that race, I did like 5 hours and 6 seconds. And at the time, 6 seconds didn't bother me, but then as time went on, I was like, 6 seconds, I'm sure I can get under 5 hours. And I quickly learned that I enjoyed the longer, the half Ironman. At this point, obviously, I hadn't done an Ironman, but I kind of did a combination of a sprint Olympic and half Ironman distance races before I sort of even started thinking about doing an Ironman. But I knew that it would probably be smart to just stick to the half for a little bit. I was obviously fairly new in the sport. I think my first ITU, I did ITU Long Course Worlds, which was in Las Vegas. And that was sort of my first exposure to anything over and above the half Ironman, because that was the year that it was going to be a 4K swim, a 120K bike, and a 30K run. So that was sort of the first big chunky race. And I remember I ran a marathon before that, trained for a marathon because I wanted to do a longer run before I sort of had a go at 30K off the bike. But the longer I went, the more I was like, oh, I like this. Yeah.
Because you were sixth at that long course, is that right?
Sixth, yeah.
And you did good.
The cancelled swim. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the longer you went, the more you're thinking, I'm not really so sure about this.
No.
But the other thing I was going to ask, so when you turned up and did those first couple of people's tries at Maraetai, Mission Bay, that sort of the alternate between those two, were you any good? Like, did you sort of just turn up and just smack it, and all everyone else was like, who the heck is this chick?
Well, I think, I mean, obviously having the swim background helps. So I think, admittedly, I had to practice swimming in the open water again because I was very much a pool swimmer, but I think I'm just very lucky in that my stroke naturally does quite well in the open water. But I mean, I can't remember too much. I do remember I was petrified of the bike. Like, I just was so scared about getting a flat tire, and just like the bike for me was the most overwhelming thing of triathlon and just everything that comes along with that. So for me, once I got through the bike, although I definitely wasn't a good runner at that time, I just a sense of relief, right? Okay, I know, like, even if I'm not super fast, I'll get through the run. But like the bike for me was always like, oh, let's just get through this. Yeah.
Yeah, and gosh, you're talking about that long course you'd had. Let's not let this one slip through the gap, because you had a second and third at Gold Coast at Olympic and sprint distance as well. So you really sort of came in with a hiss and roar. But as you're saying, you like the longer version. So from there, what did you sort of progress to from there after the next few years?
Yeah, well, Gold Coast, I'd sort of taken like a year off before that. Just, work and everything got a lot. So I took a year off. So then I was like, I guess I'd done a lot of coaching over that time, and I was still involved in the sport. And, when I actually took the break, I wasn't sure how much I would come back to it or not, but I really enjoyed the coaching. And it was sort of the girls I was coaching that sort of inspired me to want to race again. So I was like, right, Gold Coast Worlds is coming up. And yeah, I feel like for that one, I really had to come from a base of like not much fitness to, so it was good in that it was the shorter distance to train for. But yeah, kind of again, once I did those races and I was sort of eager to work my way back up again. And I guess I sort of, I think the break was good for me because it just kind of, I was, hungry to go again. And from there, I'm trying to think back, but from there, I sort of mostly focused on half Ironman again. It took me I think I had a little break before I did a full Ironman again. But I did find myself starting to see improvements over that half Ironman distance, which obviously is really motivating when you're seeing those improvements coming through.
Because I remember, I don't know what year it is, Vanessa, so I don't know. It must be 2014, 15, somewhere in there, in the Taupo half. And I remember, there's a couple of years there, you were there or thereabouts, and then you got yourself onto the podium one year, and it's been like, look at Vanessa go. And it must have been a real legitimacy thing for you against a really good field to be. I remember you were so happy on the podium, and your mates were all cheering. I was like, man, that's cool. All that hard work, that real sense of, you know what, I'm flipping doing it.
Yeah, I think for me, it really was a confidence thing, particularly on the bike. But the more I got used to the bike, the more I started to love the bike, and the fear of the bike went away, and I really actually enjoyed the bike. And then for me, it was a real confidence thing on the run. Not being a great runner, like I've always run, but I would have never considered myself a good runner. I just never, I was always running scared. I always felt like I'd get off the bike and then there were people just coming past me. So I think, the harder I worked on the running and the more experience I got racing, I was starting to see the gains in the run. And I think the more confident I got and the less scared I was of the run, that's when I really started to seeing the improvements. Because I think for me, racing with a confidence that I can hold my place off the bike was sort of a new place for me. And that just sort of from there, I really felt like I started to grow and was able to push myself further. Yeah.
Knowing, talked about sort of working full time and training and so on. And the only other person that I'm aware of in Ironman New Zealand history, and she was a pro, working a full-time job was Karen Balance. And that juggling act is, it's remarkable. It's hugely inspiring what you've been able to achieve with that juggling act. But, combined with that, there are times when I guess you've touched on it, need to step away, and you had sort of one of those moments around sort of 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where it was. Yeah, it was pretty much 17. I didn't race at all in 17. So, that's sort of where I, just stepped back. But yeah, as I said, I think the coaching, and I was coaching some sort of beginner triathletes at the time.
Yeah.
And they were always sort of like, when are you going to race again? When are you going to race again? And so, and I just kind of, I thought I was just dabbling again. And then I was like, no, I'm back. Yeah. And I think I'm just the sort of person that can't do anything half-heartedly. Now I think with the sport, I'm always, trying to get the best out of myself. So once I'm committed, I'm committed. Yeah.
Yeah. So you came and went a couple of times, but this time coming back on the back of that, I mean, this is where the really big stuff starts to happen for you. And we throw in a lockdown and so on. There was Ironman Cairns. Was that a bit of a sort of the real turning point for you there? I look at your time there. You had about a 9 sub 9:30 and 9:24, 9:25, something thereabouts.
Yeah, Cairns for me was off the back of lockdown. And I mean, my husband and I were really lucky, and lockdown, and that we both retained our jobs, but we were both working from home full time. So we didn't have any financial stress, which I think helped a lot. Obviously, very aware that a lot of people weren't so lucky. And I think that, during that time, we just like worked from home and trained a lot. And we kept like a nice sense of routine, which I think really helped get us through that time. And I did a lot of indoor training because in Melbourne we had the 5K radius, so we weren't allowed to go outside of that. And obviously, I had like Zwift to keep me motivated, and we had a treadmill. So, I mean, aside from not really being able to do much swimming, we were like, I feel like I had a really uninterrupted block of training. I was really enjoying it because it gave me something to focus on. And then sort of Cairns was on the back of that. And I do feel like I probably had one of the most uninterrupted, less stressful builds. And I think that just kind of goes to show how well you can perform when you take out, a few of life's other stresses.
Yeah.
You talk about the just a real quick thing on the lockdowns, and you sort of glossed over. I did a bit of Zwift. You got really, really good at Zwift. You're like you talk about. I mean, you were an absolute weapon on. And look, I follow you on Strava, and I always look at it and go, man, I mean, you're just a weapon. But during those lockdowns, you started onto Zwift, and I was like, holy moly, man, you got really good.
Yeah, I think, the indoor training does make you strong. And yeah, just kind of like, I remember I was doing 200K rides and they weren't even feeling that long anymore. Like I was like, I'm either a bit crazy or like this lockdown is really getting to me. But yeah, and I think, because just before lockdown happened, I raced Ironman New Zealand, and that weekend that I was in New Zealand, I got a phone call from Zwift because I'd applied for the Zwift Academy, and they were like, we just wanted to let you know that you're on a short list. So we're going to be in contact next week, blah, blah, blah. And then like COVID just exploded and like the world went into, and I think we only just got back into Australia in time. And we were really lucky to get that year's Ironman New Zealand in. And then, and then of course the Zwift Academy did not happen. So to find out like I was on a short list, but then it kind of didn't happen. And I think, then I kind of put my head down, bum up too. And I was like, right, I'm just going to get really good and I'm going to apply again next year. And I wanted to get back to the Ironman World Champs, and I knew that in my head, and I knew that, like obviously the Zwift Academy and everything that came with it was a great experience, and I knew about it. So, I just thought, what, if you don't try, you'll never know. So I just kind of put my head down, bum up, and worked really hard to try and take full advantage of that opportunity the next year.
Yeah. And what did that opportunity bring once you, with the academy?
Yeah, well, I applied again, and there was a couple of years prior to that I applied and never heard back. So I guess you just got to keep at it. But I made the Zwift Academy team, and then of course there was still so much uncertainty around traveling and everything. And 1 minute Ironman World Champs was on, and then it wasn't. But throughout the whole thing, I just kind of kept training and like was thinking to myself, well, I just have to be prepared to race at any time. But at the same time, you're not being interrupted because you don't have other, you're not trying to peak for other races and everything like that. So, when they finally announced there would be an Ironman World Champs and it would be at St. George, then the next thing was, trying to make sure that we could travel outside of Australia for that. So it was quite a roller coaster of a period, but we got there, and then went to St. George to race the Ironman World Champs there.
Yeah, and so you'd had a first at 2020 Ironman New Zealand in your age group there, and I think you were overall. St. George, that was a tough old bike course, but Zwift's got you sort of locked and loaded for that one, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I did. I really loved that course. I went in a little underdone on the run because I had some injury issues, so we really were able to work the bike quite hard. So focus on the swim and bike. The run was incredibly tough, and you can't fake a marathon if you have been a little bit injured. So I did all right up until 30K, and then the wheels did fall off a little bit. But it was a frustrating race for me because I was really unlucky on the bike with 2 punctures, and so I didn't feel like I got to get the time that the effort sort of should have reflected. I was really proud of myself in that race because I, managed to come back from that and, and still do really well. But yeah, I guess, I finished that race and I was Ironman world champion in that age group, but I was still hungry because I hadn't had the day I wanted. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm suspecting that's come a little bit later for you, and we'll get to that when you get to Kona. But I guess it sort of segues into Ironman New Zealand again, and it's delayed. Not the traditional March; it's the back end of the year.
Yeah,
it's a pretty grotty old day as well. Just throw it all in there. Just take us through your day and how it all unfolded for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible conditions. Probably, I'd say the worst Ironman conditions I've ever raced in. But it's so funny because I always find like ahead of a training weekend, you're always checking the weather forecast. Like, oh, what's the weather going to do? But something like changes inside me for the race week, and I'm like, it's not controllable. You can't do anything about it. Everyone's in the same boat. So I really don't even. I prepare myself. So, obviously I need to look at what I'm going to wear. Like for Ironman New Zealand, there were some layers involved. But aside from that, I really don't let the weather situation stress me out. So, I remember I had a really good swim that year. So I think the last time I'd raced Ironman New Zealand, I'd actually ended up suffering from some quite bad cramps in the swim. So I had been a little bit fearful going in, just the reality of Lake Taupo being a little bit cold. So I was just really happy to kind of get through the swim, have a strong swim, no cramp issues. So it kind of all went to plan. And then, on the bike, just had a really good day out. Like the weather was obviously atrocious, but, I had layers on and I did actually unluckily get a flat in that race as well at 170K. And at that point I was leading the race. And so this was probably a blessing in disguise that was no pro field that year because there was no pro field, the roving mechanics were kind of sitting near the front of the race. So it didn't take too long for the mechanic, who was Ben, to pull up next to me, and we were able to do a really quick change, unlike St. George where there was no help around. But that sort of put a little bit of a dampener on the end of the bike, but again managed to just kind of refocus and come back and then sort of execute the run that I'd been training for. And I think with Cairns, when I did my run off the bike and you get a PB time and you're really happy with your performance, there's always that, when you've done it once, there's always that kind of slight voice in your ear, like, was it a fluke? Can I do it again? And then, I guess just to know now that I've sort of done a similar-ish time across a few races, it really gave me a confidence heading into that run, and just knowing that I can do this. And ended up having a really fantastic day out there. Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like racing for the tape? And I mean that, as an age group athlete, you'll have, someone like, one of us on the finish line at Ironman New Zealand, and it's like, won our age group provisionally and da-da-da. What's it like running for the tape? Everyone's there, the banner's up, and you win one of the most storied Ironman races. Mike Reilly's on his last ever announcing gig is flipping pushing it. That must have been really cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And obviously it's an experience as an age grouper that you very rarely get or never get. So knowing that, and obviously knowing it was Mike Reilly's race, definitely added something extra special to it. So I would definitely be lying if I hadn't said that I was thinking about the tape. I wanted the tape. So it was just a really nice way to end the day. And you get some great photos for Instagram as well.
We need to show you our shirts.
Oh yeah.
There he goes.
As well.
Yeah, no, it was really special. And I was just really happy to be back, at the home race, putting down a really good performance. So, and it's always just nice when all the hard work kind of pays off, because obviously we know that in Ironman it's a long day and you don't always have the day you want. So to kind of have the day I want there, minus the little puncture blip, was really satisfying.
As an age grouper, and 2022 would have been a wee bit different because there were no pros there. But so you know, if you're on the front, you know what's going on. You've got a bit of a feel for your rivals. But racing in an age group field,
Yeah.
and staggered starts and all of those things. How do you focus solely internally on your numbers, the way you're feeling, or are you able to keep an eye on those around? Do you know many of the others around you, who your competitors are? How do you approach it? Are you racing yourself or are you racing others?
Yeah, I think for the most part myself, but I mean, having raced, I guess, in Australia and New Zealand a lot, you do kind of know your competitors. And when you see a start list, you kind of, know some key competitors. But from my experience, it's always someone you haven't thought of that ends up being your main rival. So I do try and not place too much importance on that. Yeah, my husband Sean, he is, he is very detail orientated when it comes to knowing who I'm racing, what their times are, what they've done before. And to be honest, I don't really even engage in the conversation with him about it. He has it, and he'll keep an eye on them on race day, and he will update me.
Yeah.
Like he'll try and give me splits as I'm riding. But I do find at the end of the day, especially with the rolling starts these days, you really just have to focus on yourself. It is a little bit of a shame. I do really love those sort of mass starts where you're really actually racing those around you. It just brings something like, it just brings an extra element to it. But these days, obviously with field sizes, it just isn't possible. So it's mostly self-focus, but and I guess being a strong swimmer, I'm generally off the front or near the front or in the mix. And I really just put my head down, and I know what numbers I'm targeting, and I know what I'm capable of. So I generally more just focus on myself, and then what happens later in the day, you kind of respond to then.
At what point in a race, Vanessa, because you just talked about sticking to your numbers, and it's something that's quite interesting as we talk to some of the athletes on this show from going back before smartwatches and power meters and everything. They're just like, you know what, I just went out and ran, but these days obviously you've got the benefit of being able to understand your numbers and everything. Do you stick to those at all times? If the race is going up the road from you, do you roll the dice a bit, or do you just stick to the plan? What do you do?
I think this is probably where age group and professional racing differs quite a lot, because I feel like as an age grouper you can kind of stick to your plan a little bit more. That's not to say I don't deviate from it, but I definitely, I feel like, in the pointy end of a pro race where there's a lot happening, you have to respond more than what's your numbers. Whereas I feel like in an Ironman age group race, it is more, I can more focus on my numbers. I know what I can't push past and sustain. That's not to say if someone went past me at any point that I wouldn't try and respond, but also with the staggered start, you're not necessarily racing the person next to you. So I think it's a little bit of a different ball game. But I am, when it comes to, power on the bike and pace on the run, I am very, I guess I love the number side of it. That's probably as detailed as I get. Like, I haven't gone too scientific, but I do love, I love training to power, racing to power, and probably slightly to my detriment, I'm very focused on pace when it comes to my run. It annoys my coach a little bit. He's like, perceived effort. I'm like, no, pace.
Your husband is obviously just a fantastic supporter for you. Just the little snapshot you gave us before. I just look at your results over the years and compare them with, say, what you did in 2022 and those awful conditions. And the time that you did that day would have got you second place a few years. It would have got you on the third place and regularly in the top 5. And that was you racing in really terrible conditions. Have you ever considered going pro?
I think it's a hard one, because I think, like if I was 20 years younger now, or even 10 years younger now, and the opportunities that, have come about in triathlon in recent years were there, I would probably say yes. I feel like I am at sort of I'm probably not going to have too many more years getting faster. And so I feel like it's taken me this number of years to get this good. And I feel like, if I was a little bit younger, I would take that leap. But I feel like right now I'm quite content where I am. I'm sort of, as an age grouper, I've achieved a lot of things that I honestly once didn't even think would be possible. So I'm just really content where I am in my triathlon journey. And I'm not saying like, you know, that you can't race pro if you're late 30s or early 40s, but I feel like I would have wanted to have already started by now. But, you know, 10 years ago, I probably wasn't ready to race in a pro field. Yeah.
But I guess the later start's giving you the longevity as well, though,
Yeah.
So
and, you know,
there's bonuses on both sides.
Yeah, and listening to myself, you know, when I did need to take the break, you know, you know, I mean, a year in the scheme of things isn't that long. At the time, it feels horrendous. I've had a year off training. Like, how am I ever going to get back to where I was? But it's kind of crazy what you can do with, you know, a little bit of commitment and consistency.
2023 Kona World Championships, you get another world title. Is that your best ever day, that day? I'm just wondering, looking at your time, over the course of the day.
Performance-wise, like, yeah, probably it would have been up there with my best day. Yeah, felt really great in the swim. You know, I held some really good numbers on the bike. I question if I could have done more on the aerodynamics front, just compared to the time I got for the numbers. But that's probably what I feel could be my biggest area of improvement there. And then the run, I had a solid day. I'd hoped to go a little bit quicker. But you're in Hawaii, right? And you've been training in Melbourne winter. And I think, you know, the reality is it's going to be tough unless you've got the time to go and spend there before. So I was really proud of my day. I'd say it was a solid day. And obviously I was really happy to get the World Championship title there. I was really happy to get it in St. George, but I think just getting it in Kona was a little bit more special. I felt like that's sort of what I'd been out to get. So it was, nice to kind of do that. And then, I think just, you know, after that race was really happy, felt like I didn't quite perform to my potential on the run. And that's sort of, I guess, what egged me on to go and try and have a good day at Roth. Yeah.
Good day at Roth.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Tell us about that.
So, Roth was probably what I would consider my best Ironman performance to date. Just mostly everything. No technical issues. I just had a really great day across swim, bike, and run. And in Roth, I was, I guess, probably able to put together the run performance that I'd hoped to put together in Kona. I really felt a great sense of satisfaction after Roth. And I think that was, you know, my main aim for Roth was to see how fast I could go. And not quite getting the sub-9 time, but I was close.
So we'll set a new goal for you here. You've won a world title in St. George. You've won a world title in Kona. So nice to do the 3 in Nice.
Yeah, I did. You know, I actually had committed to Roth quite far out to secure the spot. So, I even before Kona, I knew I was racing Roth, which sort of meant that I had to forego Nice. It was sort of one or the other. I guess never say never, but I was really happy that I did Roth, but I'm very excited to see how Nice unfolds. Yeah.
Do you ever look back, Vanessa, and think to yourself when you're, you know, traipsing out the front door with the old man? Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say the old man, with your dad. I only say that because my daughters call me the old man, but anyway, when you're rolling out with your dad, going out for a run, and then you look forward, I don't know, 20, 30 odd years, 40 years, whatever it is, and go, man, or be 40. You know, you look forward 30 years and go, man, that's still back that far. How cool is it? Look what I've achieved. I mean, what would the young Vanessa striding around the streets of wherever it is you grew up think of the Vanessa now?
Yeah, it's a bit surreal when you think about it like that, because I never thought, like, you know, I never took swimming quite far enough to get to like Olympic level, and I never, I hadn't done any cycling and running. I just, I think my first half marathon I did just over 2 hours. So I never thought I was a great runner. And it's crazy to think now, like, where I'm at. And I just honestly, like, it's just kind of, I always say that so many people in the sport give up before they get good. And I think I've just stuck at it for so many years that you reap the rewards of that. I've had great coaches, I've had, great training buddies, and I think probably how I've got to where I've got to is just through pure enjoyment, like never feeling like it was a chore to go out and train. Like I love training. And I learned that through COVID. Like I love racing, but for me, most of the enjoyment comes through the process and the training. And I think that's why I was able to stay so motivated during lockdown. Is just because I love seeing myself get better and, doing things that you honestly once never thought achievable. Because, yeah, I think if you'd have told me as a little kid that I'd sort of be an Ironman age group world champion, it would just, seem very far-fetched. And, I always say to people, like, I'm not the best swimmer, the best cyclist, or the best runner, but I've just learned how to put them together nicely. Yeah.
This old saying, a diamond's just a piece of coal that's stuck at it, which
yeah. Yeah, I think so many people give up before they kind of get to that point, because it's like it doesn't happen overnight. Like it can take such a long time, and for some people it takes less time, but for me it's just taken a number of years to build fitness, to build strength, to build confidence. And I think once all those things come together, then you start seeing the results.
So something else I was going to ask was the 2022 Ironman New Zealand that you won. I remember that the prize giving the next day, and it must be pretty cool when you're presented with the winner's trophy that you won. Like, what was that like standing there? You got, because they're big, heavy things, the trophies for the men and women. But what was that like standing up there? I won this damn thing. When did that actually sink in?
Yeah, it was a pretty surreal experience, and I feel like I've done a number of really cool Ironman events, but there's nothing like, I think for New Zealanders, there's nothing like having that sort of performance in New Zealand, and particularly just with no pro field there, and just kind of, I guess, getting to soak all that up as the overall winner was pretty special. And I think that's definitely up there as one of my top sporting moments for sure.
Well, hopefully we can give you another one of those or you can give yourself another one of those sporting moments a little bit later this year, of course, in total with the 70.3 Worlds. How's on track for you there? How's training, and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, training's going good. After Roth, I did, we spent a little bit of time in Europe having a non-triathlon holiday. So, so I've spent the last few weeks just, trying to like build on the fitness again. But again, I think that break was really valuable for me because it sort of just refreshed me, and now I'm really hungry for Taupo in December. And I guess having a good crack over the 70.3 distance is, I've won 70.3 titles, but obviously never been to a world championship event in that distance. So I'm really excited to see what I can do, and obviously super special with it being back in Taupo. Yeah.
Well, it'll be fantastic to have you back on this side of the Tasman once again on a track, on a course that you know so well, because you're the Ironman New Zealand champion. And look, Vanessa, thank you so much for your time. We're enormously grateful to you for joining us, and thank you for what you have added to Ironman New Zealand over the years. It's been great having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.